Hi, Chloe. I'm so glad to be chatting with you a bit about Joy Baker and Joy Baker Day, which is a day where we recognize our freedom to home educate and celebrate it, and also talk about the challenges that we face as home educators in respect of our freedom. But before we go on, just can you just tell us a little bit more about you?
Hi, I'm Chloe Newby, and I was home educated myself from partway through my childhood, and I've grown up and I'm now home educating my own children. So, being a second generation home eder, I've seen some of the changes, some of the political challenges, and I'm really enjoying getting to see it sort of from the outset with my own children.
Yes, and your husband was home educated as well, wasn't he?
Yes, we are a fully home ed family.
And you are also fully functioning in society, I imagine.
Yes, we have both had jobs. At the moment, I'm just homemaking because I've got little ones taking a lot of attention. No, actually, I do work part time, but only a little bit.
Yeah. Yes, and I think that it's really good to hear from adults who are home educated and to see that you've turned out okay. Um, and yeah, I think it's just a good thing, and that you can be a role model as well for other home educators or children who are home educated. So Chloe, we know quite a bit about Joy Baker. She was a very feisty lady. She knew her rights really, and we're going to talk a bit about that in a moment. And I have to say that actually you remind me a little bit of her. Not that I knew her personally, but I've read her book, and I think you have the same feistiness. And I'm actually going to. I know we didn't discuss it. We talk about this, but you were as a teenager, you were quite active in fighting back against the then Badman report and moves in Parliament at that point to restrict home educators. Just give us a little bit of insight into that, please.
Yeah, well, I was a home educated teen when they came out with all these completely baseless concerns that maybe home education was being as a used as a cover for abuse and forced labour and forced marriage. And I got very cross and went to tell them that they were wrong. And along with other home ed teenagers that I knew, we formed the Home Educated Youth Council. We lobbied. Um, we were sort of successful in that we managed to delay things until it was tossed out in the wash up by my MP. So I like to think that I convinced him. But of course, he was opposition party, so they
Yeah, and I
haven't.
think I think we'll come back to that a little bit later. Just the importance of everyone getting involved and
Yeah,
talking to the MPs. So, but I think I wanted to also just ask you then, what do you draw from Joy Baker's story? What inspires you about Joy?
just the fact that she knew her own mind and her own family. She didn't listen to all the people pretending to be experts saying that she couldn't do it because she could see her children and she could see they were thriving and she wasn't going to be gaslit by the authorities into thinking she couldn't do it. I think standing firm just for what you know is right is an incredibly admirable trait in anyone. And, you know, my own experience of standing up to the government was quite intense, but I had a whole community around me. She did it on her own just because she knew what she should be doing in her own life. And she knew she should be able to do this. And she wasn't going to be told she couldn't just by some busybodies.
Yeah, yeah. And what would you say, what were some of her most powerful sort of tools and weapons that she drew on?
Her writing, her speech, her willingness to just keep at it. Because she contacted her MP, she contacted her councillors, talked to the LA, and she was just not going to be cowed by the possibility that it wouldn't work. And I think that's something we all have to take because you feel very small against the bureaucracy, um, and there's not much you can do. but at the same time, you can win sometimes, and it's an incredible feeling when you do. I'm sure when she won, she must have felt an immense weight off her shoulders, uh, and I think that's something we can all bring to it because it's easy to feel like, oh, what can I do? I'm so little; they won't listen to me, and it's possibly true that they won't listen, but it's also possibly true that they will, or they won't be able to shut you up.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good point to make. And she really made sure she knew the law so that she could actually draw on that knowledge and use every bit of it.
Yeah, yeah, understanding and being able to articulate why what you know internally fits in the wider framework of the world. I think that's really powerful, being able to say what the law is and why it's like that, and how therefore you can't just interpret it to the interests of the authorities and their convenience, because that's not why the law was written. It wasn't written to make LAs happy.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's she was quite traumatized by all of that, and I think we have to take that stand because, and you have to see it through to the end because if you don't, you will end up damaged and hurt by it. I think by experiences like that.
Yeah, I think even if you lose a battle, it still feels better to know that you followed through what you believe in and what you understand, and that you've been
You did
able to
everything
keep
you
your own
could.
integrity. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, you've done as much as you can within your power, and we all have more power, I think, than we realize,
yeah,
particularly when we work together.
yeah.
And that youth council, do you think that had some clout? Do you think that went some way to kind of enlightening MPs and that kind of thing?
I definitely think having us talking to MPs directly, because we, not just us teams, but lots of home editors did a mass lobby of Parliament one day, and we all went and talked to our MPs. And I went in not only to talk to my own MP, but I went with friends to theirs just to lend moral support. And I think when it comes from the mouths of the children who are directly impacted, well, they at least have to pretend to listen. It's very rude to
Yes.
ignore a child. But
Yes,
I
and
think some of them genuinely did listen as well.
it's immensely powerful to hear. They always go on and on about the voice of the child, don't they?
Yeah, and they
Um,
wanted to believe that we wouldn't tell the truth about home education in front of our parents, and that we were only saying we liked it because our parents were in the room. And that's why we formed a youth organisation to speak independent of the adults.
yeah,
Um, and I think having that, just like, yeah, this is from the horse's mouth. Actually, school was terrible for me, and home education is working really well. Without the sort of, I think adults maybe have a tendency to pick up on sound bites and end up sort of repeating the same language that other people are using, whereas
yeah,
children are much more likely to give a very unfiltered and direct expression of their experience. And I think that can really be powerful if someone's heard a load of lobbying to hear something that isn't using the same wording and they know is sincere.
yeah. And we're anticipating that we're going to have a fresh battle on our hands. Maybe not with Lord Story's bill or the other bill that's being put forward in the Commons, but certainly the Children's Wellbeing Bill is kind of going to be, the government are hot on this, and we're expecting it will be all have a substantial section like the schools bill on home education. So, do you think that we need to get more young people involved this time round?
Yeah, I
What's
think
your feeling about that?
I think we need to all take some responsibility, and that includes at least the teenagers and some younger children who care about having their future the way they want it to be. And they've got as much power to send a postcard or write an email as anyone else. They're still constituents. They have to be listened to some degree, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It can just be an expression of how you feel. And I think sometimes parents want to sort of shield their children and protect them from the fear of what might happen. But I think A, children are stronger than you realise often, um, and B, they'll feel more secure if they know we're all fighting this and here's something you can do than if it's just sit there, stay still while the adults do things. I think it's part of a hands-on education is
Yeah, and I think it's
supporting.
also, I also think it's powerful for MPs to see that these kids are okay, that they're actually fine, they're happy, they're thriving, um, to dispel the myths, because there are a lot of other narratives out there.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's really important to hear from the children themselves that it does actually harm them to feel intruded upon and watched, because it's very easy to dismiss that. But children actually do have a sense of privacy. They do actually have a sense of concern about being treated differently. They do actually find these things meaningfully difficult, and so it's not just the parents complaining because they don't want to do paperwork. It's the parents trying to protect their children, and sometimes the MPs don't believe that until the child themselves comes and says, actually, I don't feel like this will support my well-being. It's actually making me quite distressed.
yeah, well, we as parents, we kind of putting ourselves, we are protecting our children in a sense, because we are the only ones that are listening to them. So if they've been very unhappy in school and been passed from one professional to another or ignored, the parent is actually ultimately the only one that can speak for that child.
Mhm.
And it's to get MPs to understand, the reasons why parents are acting in that way, and what we're protecting is not so much trying to protect our own little home and our own. We want to protect the freedom to be able to choose how our children are educated. And
Yeah,
all parents should know that they've got that freedom to choose.
yeah. I think as a child, I wanted the right to have decisions made about me by people who were personally invested in me, not who were just doing it as part of their job. Like, just imagine if your parents could be like, right, I'm taking a 2 week holiday. I don't have to care about you for a fortnight. But that's what the local authority do. They're just staff. They're like, I'm having a break now.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a quote by Joy where she said that believes that only those who love the child should be making those decisions, and
Yeah,
sort of looking to the child's future. Um, so, I think that I will find that quote and I will pop it up somewhere, because it is quite a powerful one. Um, because teachers can be the most wonderful people in the world, but they will never love a child the way that child's
yeah,
parent does. In most cases, I will add. Um, so yeah, I think you're a parent now yourself, so you getting a sense of what it is to protect your own family, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. It's something you don't fully appreciate as a child, but that you can still definitely see the difference between the people who are just doing their jobs and the people who love you. Everyone can tell that. And there's no skin in the game for them. If they muck up one child's education or childhood entirely, what's it to them? It's like one poor mark on their grades. Who cares? Whereas if you're the parent of that child and your child is scarred for life, that's going to eat at you for your entire life. So of course you care more. It's just can't help but have the incentives be
Yes.
that way.
A teacher's able to
And
sort of wash their hands of it at the end of the year, move the child on, and let's move on to their next group.
yeah, and you
Whereas
couldn't.
a parent can't do that.
Yeah, even a really empathetic teacher still has to take on a new 30 or more children every year. You can't form that deep a relationship. If you did, it would be terribly, terribly painful as the children left school.
That's true. Anyway, thank you so much, Chloe, for your comments. I hope that they'll be encouraging to those who are watching.
Yeah, get out there, make your voices heard. We're only little individuals, but at the same time, even one individual can make a huge difference, and that's what Joy Baker shows.